The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from over 1,000 star systems filled the gleaming, tiered arena, waiting to witness the induction of humanity as a new member. Humanity was a latecomer to the galaxy's great stage, technologically behind the rest. Yet, their curiosity, resilience, and adaptability had made them popular among member worlds. The Council believed that once humanity accepted its formal place among them, it would contribute greatly to the peaceful cooperation binding the galaxy. All eyes turned to the human delegation as Ambassador Lila Carter took the podium, her figure dwarfed by the vastness of the room and the assembly of alien species before her. A hush fell over the hall. Lila took a breath, her gaze steady and unflinching as she scanned the expectant faces in the crowd. For weeks, humanity had prepared for this day, but no one outside Earth knew what was coming. Members of the Galactic Council, Lila began, her voice amplified but calm. We are grateful for the honor of joining your esteemed alliance. A murmur of approval spread through the crowd, but she held up a hand, and the room fell silent again. However, we cannot, in good conscience, accept the terms as they stand. The murmurs turned into whispers, rippling outward from the Council's central dais. Aliens of various forms, colors, and statures exchanged startled glances, antennae twitching, scales flashing, eyes narrowing. Never before had a species refused the Council's invitation. Most saw it as the pinnacle of progress, a safeguard against galactic conflict, a guarantee of interstellar support. Refusing was unthinkable. Lila continued, unfazed by the growing tension. The Council's regulations on planetary sovereignty and trade go against the values Earth holds most dear. Our independence, our freedom to determine our path, cannot be compromised. The whispers turned to shocked silence. The Council's presiding leader, a towering figure from the Duran species, rose slowly. His voice, deep and resonant, boomed through the chamber. Ambassador Carter, you would turn down this invitation, one that would grant Earth stability, protection, and prosperity within the galactic fold? With all respect, Supreme Chancellor Thax, Lila replied, unwavering, the conditions offered are not worth the cost of our autonomy. Humanity has survived and thrived on its own terms, and we cannot surrender that for any promise, however appealing. The hall erupted. Representatives from all corners of the galaxy, species whose forms varied as wildly as their languages, expressed shock and indignation. Some called for reconsideration, others, enraged, demanded sanctions. Lila stood motionless at the podium, her face unreadable. From the back of the room, a small delegate from the minor Talcari species leaned toward her companion, his whispered words sharp with admiration. They dare to say no to them? In that moment, humanity's refusal became a rallying cry for those who'd quietly harbored doubts about the Council's grip over galactic politics. As the uproar continued, Lila Carter simply turned and left the podium, humanity's decision hanging in the air, a bold, defiant spark against the vastness of the galaxy. In the Council's inner chambers, far from the prying eyes of the galaxy, a tense meeting of the High Command was underway. The room was dim, save for the glow of holographic displays outlining the human refusal. Supreme Chancellor Thax leaned forward, his powerful form casting a long shadow across the table. This is unprecedented, he rumbled, his voice low but carrying the weight of authority. No species has ever rejected our terms. And yet, these humans have the audacity to defy us so openly. Around him, representatives from the Council's most powerful species sat in stunned silence. The Urani diplomat, whose translucent skin glowed with a faint green hue, cleared his throat. Perhaps they misunderstand our offer. Humanity is young, and their culture primitive. They might not comprehend the benefits we provide. The Alrec delegate, a species known for its sharp intellect and even sharper claws, scoffed. Misunderstand? That ambassador knew exactly what she was doing. Her tone, her confidence, it was a deliberate act of defiance. Humans are not to be underestimated. The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. If humanity's defiance went unchecked, it could embolden others, particularly the minor races who'd long chafed under the Council's control. A rebellion, sparked by a species with little military power, yet boundless ambition, was a risk they couldn't afford. Supreme Chancellor Thax finally spoke. "We will summon Ambassador Carter for an immediate private session. She will explain this refusal, and we will make her reconsider." Soon, in the private diplomatic chamber, Lila Carter stood alone before the Council's leaders. The room's tension was palpable, but she faced them calmly, her expression revealing nothing. "Ambassador Carter," began Thax, his voice a controlled rumble. "Do you understand the gravity of your decision? Earth stands at the brink of joining an alliance that spans the galaxy. To refuse invites risk. Chaos." Lila met his gaze steadily. "With respect, Chancellor, humanity values its sovereignty above all else. We've fought wars, survived countless challenges, and flourished on our own. We won't sacrifice that independence, not even for the promise of galactic security." The Council members exchanged uneasy glances. Thax leaned closer, narrowing his gaze. "You speak of challenges, yet your world's history cannot compare to the eons of struggle endured by countless species in this chamber." "We don't presume to compare," Lila replied, unshaken. "But I ask the Council to consider this. Humanity has always survived against the odds. We're a species that adapts, that learns, and that finds strength in adversity. If we're to join the galaxy, we must do so as equals, not as subordinates." A tense silence followed her words. Thax's eyes narrowed, the threat implicit. "Ambassador Carter, we extend this offer one final time. Refuse, and Earth may find itself isolated. Trade restrictions, territorial limits, and more are within our power to enforce." Lila remained calm. "Then do what you must, Chancellor. Humanity won't yield its freedom. We'd rather face the consequences." As she turned and left, the High Command sat in stunned silence, their minds racing. For the first time, the Council faced a species that, though young and seemingly naive, held the power to disrupt everything they had built.
Word of humanity's defiance spread through the Council's ranks like wildfire, igniting debates across the galaxy. For countless eons, smaller species had accepted the Council's terms without question, too reliant on its resources and protection to dare challenge its authority. But now humanity, a young, relatively unknown species, had shown that saying no was possible. The galaxy was watching, and not everyone was on the Council's side. In the shadows of the Council's sprawling capital, a clandestine meeting took place. Representatives from minor species, the ignored, the overlooked, gathered in a small, unremarkable chamber. Here, the Inari, a spider-like race relegated to menial roles, and the Gyrax, a delicate species prized for their scientific knowledge but given no say in governance, spoke openly. The human stance had sparked something in them, and for the first time, they dared to imagine a galaxy where they, too, could be free. "The humans refused to bow," whispered Nero of the Talcari, his voice barely above a breath. "If they can reject the Council, perhaps we can demand more as well." The others murmured their agreement, fear and hope mingling in their eyes. None of them would have dared such talk before. But humanity's defiance had shown them that the Council wasn't as invincible as it seemed. Meanwhile, in the Council's command chamber, Supreme Chancellor Thax was growing impatient. Alien whispers of rebellion had reached his ears, and his frustration festered. Humanity's refusal had become more than an isolated incident. It was a symbol of insubordination that threatened the Council's control. The High Command had debated every possible response, but the Chancellor knew drastic action was necessary to contain the situation. "Prepare a formal ultimatum," Thax ordered, his gaze fixed on the holographic figure of Ambassador Lila Carter. "If humanity refuses this time, they will be expelled from the Council entirely, their planet isolated. Make it clear that any species that dares to follow their example will face similar consequences." The message was sent, a stern ultimatum laced with threats. Earth would either submit, or it would be cast out, alone and vulnerable. But the Council underestimated humanity's resolve. When Lila Carter received the ultimatum, She read it carefully, her expression unreadable. Then she gathered her delegation, sending a formal response back to the Council. Earth would not yield. If the Council chose isolation, so be it. Humanity would forge its own path, with or without their blessing. The Council members were stunned. The humans hadn't just rejected the ultimatum, they had done so without a hint of hesitation. As Council representatives scrambled to make sense of this defiance, the murmurs among smaller species grew louder. Earth's boldness had become an example, a model of resistance for those tired of the Council's heavy hand. Emboldened by humanity's stance, the Talcari and Inari took a dangerous step. They reached out to Ambassador Carter, proposing a secret alliance, a coalition of minor races who believed that Earth's values of independence and sovereignty were worth fighting for. Lila accepted the invitation, seeing it as an opportunity to form a new front that could stand against the Council's power. By the chapter's end, the galaxy was on the brink of change. What had begun as a simple refusal had sparked an underground movement of rebellion, with humanity at its heart. For the first time, the Council faced a real threat from within, one ignited by the unyielding determination of a single species. The tension in the galaxy reached its breaking point as the Council's High Command sent a fleet of warships to orbit Earth. It was a show of force meant to break humanity's spirit and reassert the Council's dominance. As the fleet's sleek, glimmering vessels appeared above Earth, broadcasts from the Council made their message clear: compliance or isolation. But humanity did not cower. In Earth's orbital defense stations, human commanders watched the fleet's approach with grim determination. Though Earth's technology wasn't on par with the Council's, humanity had prepared. Swiftly, Earth's fleet deployed, smaller ships, customized for speed, adaptability, and tactics the Council hadn't seen before. They didn't have the Council's firepower, but their unpredictability made the Council fleet wary. It wasn't a direct challenge, but a statement. Humanity would defend itself on its own terms. Down below, Ambassador Lila Carter stood before the broadcast cameras, sending out a live message not only to the Council, but to every sentient being within their reach. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice strong and unwavering. "The Council has come to Earth with demands and threats, seeking to control us. But humanity does not bow. We know what it is to struggle, to fight, and to survive. We will not sacrifice our freedom, not now, not ever." Across the galaxy, her words echoed, reaching the systems of countless smaller species. In dimly lit chambers and crowded gathering spots, the oppressed races of the galaxy listened, their hearts quickening with hope. The humans were standing up to the Council, and for the first time they felt they could, too. With her message delivered, Carter turned to the Unshackled Alliance, a coalition of minor species who had reached out in secret, emboldened by Earth's defiance. In the days since their initial contact, the Alliance had grown. Their goal was clear: they would no longer be subjects to the Council's control. Together, with humanity as their figurehead, they formed a declaration, an alliance of sovereign planets, committed to mutual defense and freedom from the Council's rule. The Council fleet, receiving word of this alliance, hesitated. They had prepared to threaten and isolate Earth, but now they faced a growing coalition, bound by something stronger than force, shared purpose, and the desire for self-determination. Orders were shouted across Council command ships, recalculations and uncertainties fracturing their resolve. Then, as if in response to Earth's defiance, the Council ships began to pull back, warily retreating from Earth's orbit. The Council had never been challenged this way. Their fleet could destroy, but it could not intimidate a species unwilling to yield. Their retreat signaled more than tactical caution. It was the beginning of a shift in galactic power. As the Council's ships withdrew, Carter addressed her allies in the Unshackled Alliance. "Today, we showed the galaxy that freedom cannot be dictated by the few. Together, we have set a new course, and together, we will build a future based on respect and sovereignty." Cheers erupted across Earth's command centers, and messages of solidarity flooded in from new allies. What had started as a single act of defiance had transformed the galaxy forever. The Council, once unchallenged, would now contend with a coalition it had never expected: humanity and the newly unified worlds that refused to be ruled. The future was uncertain, but Earth had carved its own path, lighting the way for others to follow.